big bell at the front of the engine? Here, it's this cord up here. If you pull it really hard, you get to hear the bell ring.
Here, you do it real quickly. Here, grab. Here, come here. I'll stay with you, buddy. No, you don't want to?
No,
all
we'll
right.
work up to it.
It's okay. We'll try to get there.
We'll try to.
You want to sit in the captain's seat, amigo?
It's in the engineer's seat? No,
Yeah.
you just take it all in?
All right. Sorry.
No, hey, no problem.
All right. I think that's everybody. So unless you guys want to sit in the seats,
Huh? Oh, sure.
Switch
we can
spot,
go ahead and
thank
get
you.
started. So welcome guys, you're in the cab of Santa Fe 3751. This is a 1927 built steam locomotive. There were 14 of these engines specifically built. Today there's only 2 in existence. You're standing in one, the other one is in Kingman, Arizona, and it's sitting in a city park. And it doesn't run. It has stuff climbing all over it, kids, kittens, and raccoons. So you're seeing the only operating 3751 class engine today is still running. This engine is completely restored, everything in it works, and I'll give you a little bit of a description of what everything up here does. So over here, this is where the engineer runs everything. He has his throttle here. When we're ready to go fast, he starts to pull this lever back. When he wants to slow down, we push this forward. One of the things that also help with slowing the train down are our brakes. Now you see a small lever here and a big lever here. Those actually indicate kind of different things. The small one controls the brakes on the engine and the tender. The big one here controls brakes on the entire train. So if you have one car hooked up, or if you have 100 cars hooked up, this controls all the brakes on the entire train. We prefer to use this one because when you guys get down, look at the big wheels there. There's brake shoes that push up against those big wheels. Those are cast iron, and it's really hard to get cast iron brake shoes for a steam engine. Beyond that, we have our power reverser here. If we want to go forward, we put this forward. If we want to go back, pull this back. Over here, this little brass valve that's kind of hard to see, this drops sand down in front of the big wheels. If we do that, that helps the big wheels get traction so we can get up the steep grades. We have our speedometer here that helps us know what we're doing. We have our radio here. This allows us to call up the dispatcher and talk to him, let him know when we're ready to go, and he lets us know when he's ready to take us. And here, we have a new piece of technology. This is a screen for what's called positive train control. Every locomotive in the nation that's going to lead a train on the main line has to have positive train control, including a steam engine built in 1927. So we are currently fundraising for this. Things like cab tours, like you guys buying a ticket today, help pay for this. So thank you for that. For other quick things here are, we have our air gauge cluster here. This tells the engineer what's going on with the locomotives and the train brakes all the way to the last car. And beyond that, I will start moving my way over to the fireman's side. I'll start with this gauge here. This is a dual-sided pressure gauge. If you lean forward really far, you can see it. Right now I have just over 150 pounds of steam in the boiler still. And knowing that I have 150 pounds, when I fire this thing up tonight, the first thing I do is check my steam, see what I have, make sure I have enough to light off. The other thing I do is come up here and open my water glasses. There's 2 of these glasses here. Now it's a little hard to see because we have these protective screens over them, but there's a glass tube inside each of those shields. Inside that tube is water. Wherever that water level is, that tells me how much water is in the whole length of the boiler going all the way to the front of the engine. If you're the fireman over there, it's your job to boil the water to make the steam. You're also in charge of making sure that you have the water in the boiler to boil the water to make the steam. The engineer over here, he has a way of helping put water in, and a small way, and it's cold water. It's called the injector. So he'll open a water valve over here, 20,000 gallons of water in this tender and 7,000 gallons of fueler back there. So when he opens this little knob over here, some of the water from the 20,000 gallons makes its way under the cab here, and we use an injector. It's basically a giant vacuum powered by steam. Sends it all the way up to the front of the engine, and it starts going into the boiler. That's cold water, and we don't put a lot of cold water in because it's not good for the boiler, and you could actually risk shocking the boiler. What we prefer to do when the engine is thundering down the tracks, and you guys hear that signature for a steam engine, all that exhaust is going out the stack. So what we do is over here on my side is we use a feed water heater. What that does is I take water from the tender on my side of the cab, goes into a little turbine here, goes up to the front of the engine, and on top we have what's called the feed water box. The water gets pumped through there, through the exhaust, and then actually preheats the water before it goes in the boiler. That's a much more efficient way of heating your water before it goes into the boiler, and it gives me a lot more water going into the boiler, which when this engine's thundering down the tracks, this little peephole here, usually I open this, and I'm looking at the reflection of the flame here. And you can there, it's kind of a nice building fire. When we're going down the tracks and we're meeting business and the engineer needs some steam and I gotta boil some water and not wait, the fire in there is white. It looks like you're staring at the sun. No exaggeration, it's white. So you're going almost off the sound of how your atomizer is doing. What's an atomizer? So my job over here as a fireman, controlling the fire, I do that in a couple different ways. This is my firing valve that controls how much of that 7,000 gallons of fuel in that tender goes into my fire. The other thing I do is I use this little valve here. It's called an atomizer. So I have to atomize the fuel. So what does that mean? Inside the firebox here, at the front of the floor of the firebox, there's this big bronze burner. It's got 2 slots that point right at you, just like that. Except there's a brick wall right here that it actually points at, but it points this direction. So that burner, what I do is I'll clear everything out. I'll turn this knob here. This is my blower. That actually has a steam nozzle at the very front of the engine near the smokestack, and it shoots up into the stack. And because that draft is being created, well, it needs to pull air from somewhere. It pulls air from way back here. Why I need to do that is because when I open the blower and I crack this atomizer, this bottom slot on the burner starts spitting steam. And that's so that when I open the oil valve here, steam's going out, the oil rolls off into it, gets vaporized. So if I throw a rag on fire in there, it'll light, and that's how we light our fire. Then I get to control through my firing valve and my atomizer how big that fire is going to be. So that flame will come back, hit that brick wall I told you about here. It'll roll over, and this whole room back here, about 20 feet going forward, is just for a fire. And then as it rolls over, it goes through nearly 300 tubes, and around the tubes is the water. That's how I boil the water to make the steam. So that's my job over there as the fireman. Up here, all these gauges and valves look kind of confusing, but I like to tell people this is kind of like when you do this long enough, coming home, you park in the garage light isn't working, so you kind of feel your way to the doorknob, you open the door, you start going into where the laundry room is, start feeling for the light switches, kind of the same thing. You start to learn the muscle memory of all these. So what this is this is my turret. Up here at the front of the cab, just past where it caps off right there, there's a big rectangle that kind of bends around the boiler a little bit. That's called my turret, and what that does is it allows steam to come into it, and if I open this one called the main fountain, it allows me to give steam to all of these valves that control where the steam goes to different appliances. Some of the things that it does is, I will say, this one is kind of neat. This one, it's really hard to read. It says cab heat. So if you look up here, way back in the day, the steam would come down this pipe, and I would control how much of it on this valve. It actually goes down into a series of pipes under my seat, and that's my floor heater. And the engineer has one over there too. You can actually see the pipes underneath his floor, underneath his seat here. We don't use these because we don't operate anywhere where it actually gets cold enough to do that. But historically, this engine between 1927 and when it was retired about 53, it would routinely run between LA and Kansas City. So you can imagine running through New Mexico over into Colorado and hitting a blizzard, and you just want this thing to be as warm as you can. You've got internal cab heat. Other things that this thing does is back in the day, passenger cars also needed to have steam heat go to their cars. They had no electric generators, they had nothing like that. So the steam locomotive would actually have a pipe run into those cars and fill those cars with steam heat, and that's what heated the cars. So other things we use it for today, since we don't use that, are my feed water pump. This allows me to have steam to control what I'm doing with that, just like I told you about. I've got my cylinder cocks. What this does is when the engine hasn't run for a while, just like anything, when something cools off that's really hot, it probably is going to condense a little bit. That's what steam does, it turns back into water. Well, you can't have water in those giant cylinders at the front of the engine, because if it does, water won't go anywhere like steam will. It needs to go somewhere and it will find a way, and one of the ways is it'll blow your piston head off. So to get away from that, we open what's called the cylinder cocks. When you guys go out there, look at those big black chests at the front of the engine where the silver rods kind of go into. Those are our cylinders, and there are the pistons, and at the very bottom of those, there's 3 little rods that come down with slots in them. Those are our cylinder cocks. So when the engineer's getting ready to go, first thing in the morning, he'll crack the throttle, and with those cylinder cocks open, steam comes down into the cylinders, pushes all that water out, and as the engine slowly moves forward and does those strokes and the pistons are moving, that water has a chance to escape. So if it doesn't escape, like I said again, you're risking blowing a piston head off. Once you see pure steam coming out and all the water goes away, you can shut that off, and then you can start using your steam more efficiently. Other than that, we've got our air pump. The engine creates its own compressed air by two big air pumps. One is here underneath the fireman side of the cab. The other one is up on the fireman side on the front of the locomotive. So this allows steam to go to those. The top one, that's for my dynamo. That's a little electric turbine up on top of the engine. So when I open that, send steam to that turbine, just like anything, starts spinning the turbine, that creates electricity. That powers light for all the light bulbs, my steam gauge, my gauge cluster here on the fireman's, the engineer's side, speedometer, and way up front, the big headlight. Steam powers that. It's pretty cool. So I've talked a lot. You guys have any questions?
How far could you go with just one tank of water? Like, would they refill it over and over and over again every night?
Yeah. So what I was telling a previous group is that just like today's Amtrak trains, when they take off and go out of town, this steam engine would do the same thing in that it would stay with the train all the way from LA to Kansas City. So a new crew would get on it. Usually those crew points are where they would have a watering stop, a service stop. They had fuel stations already set up. So right now, if we were to leave Los Angeles, we would probably make a quick stop in San Bernardino. Then it's a heavy climb over Cajon Pass to get up through Victorville into Barstow, take water in Barstow, and then we probably are going to head to Needles, and that would be our next service stop to take on more water. When this,
Go ahead.
When this engine's really working, and I mean really working hard, pulling a heavy train, we use about 100 gallons of water per month.
And this still is used today?
Absolutely. Everything on this engine works, and we brought it in under its own power.
And what kind of stuff will this get used for?
This engine routinely pulled passenger trains for the Santa Fe Railway, and that was again between LA and Kansas. Some of the Santa Fe's finest trains, the Chief, the Super Chief, these big name trains that before the automobile and freeways really became the way, train travel was the way to go. When this engine was built, it was at the pinnacle of steam locomotive technology. Being built in 1927, though, it's kind of like today's iPhones. We look back at the iPhone 1 and we go, oh my gosh, look at that thing. Eventually, the same thing happened to this engine. It became outdated. Even before the diesels came in, they were building steam engines that were bigger, more efficient, more powerful. And today, there's a steam engine very similar to this, Santa Fe Heritage, that's based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Its number is 2926, and it was built in 1944. So imagine all the modifications and advancements in technology between 1927 and 1944, especially leading into World War II and going a couple years into the war. One of the things that this engine has that one doesn't is the side rods out there that you see. You'll notice there's some grease where the side rods meet. We have to shoot alamite grease into those rods every 120 to 150 miles because these are friction bearing rods. The engine in Albuquerque, being later built, they got a lot more into roller bearings. That engine and side rods have roller bearings. So we have to stop every 120 miles. They can just fly. So they have to do other smaller lubrications, but yeah, nothing like this. So, anything else I can answer?
I was gonna say, can he pull it or no?
Oh, he can pull the bell, yeah,
You wanna
absolutely.
pull the bell? Here, do you want to try it? Here, let's
Here,
do
this
this together.
This is what it looks like.
You want to try that?
You want to pull this rope? You want to ring the bell?
You want to try now? Now that you know it's not super loud? I think he was worried it was like a really loud one.
Oh yeah. The bell's way up at the front of the engine. You want to give it a try?
Give it one try. Come on. Let's go, bud. Hold on 1 sec. Let me get... I'm right here. Let me do something for Mama. Because she'll want this. Alright, bud. Here, hold it down.
Here, I'll help you pull it. You want to put your hand up here on the rope?
Oh, here, I'll come up here. Okay, come here. Let's do it together. Do you want to do it together?
I remember being that scared.
Here. There you go. And... You did it!
You're doing it!
No?
What do you think? No? Alright, thank you.
You guys got it. Thanks for coming.
Sorry.
If anyone wants to sit in the engineer seat and take a photo, please, you're welcome to.
Okay.
Go up there, Mike. Engines, they still require a year worth of maintenance just to do quick things like this. We have to do an annual inspection for the Federal Railroad Administration, the FRA, kind of the FAA version of the railroad. So we have a great relationship with them. As long as we're up to standards with them and we pass our inspection, the engine is then certified for another year going forward. But of course, you never know what's going to happen between now and then, and something breaks when
Only
it's not
1
supposed
year,
to.
huh?
Only a year.
Yeah.
And then every 15 years, or 1,472 service days, and you actually have the engine fired up, it's very specific, you have to do an ultrasound thickness test of the boiler. So all the sheet metal you see, all the pipes on top of the sheet metal, all the insulation under it, everything comes off the engine, and it's just bare metal, and you have to ultrasound test the thickness. And to get into some of the spots in the boiler, you got to take some of those tubes out. It is a job.
I think he's ready to go. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
You got
This
it.
is so great. Thank
Glad
you.
you enjoyed it.
Did you fuck